it's well past time for Congress to start doing their heavy lifting with respect to government corruption, oversight, and accountability. So the other big issue that I'm sure conservatives are concerned about, I thought Republicans were going to win big, and obviously they didn't. They're going to barely take control of Congress, and even then, who knows? But presuming they do, it's going to have a smaller majority in Congress and in the House. In the Senate, you could actually have a slight majority in the Senate still for Republicans, depending on how at least those two races in Arizona and Nevada go. But certainly Republicans have underperformed given the political environment in which they were running. And Democrats, they should be happy. If I'm Joe Biden, I'd be like, well, this was a validation of my approach. This is, I ran on this, I'm going to bash the other side as being against democracy. I'm going to use and abuse government to suppress my political opposition. I'm going to use government to censor my political opposition. I'm going to use government to raid the homes of my political opposition. I'm going to jail my political opposition through abuse of the use of force with the FBI and Justice Department, spying on parents who are active in trying to police what their children were being taught, implying that every person who opposes him politically is a potential terrorist. It got him the votes necessary to be, to kind of say that I've been vindicated, right? That's what I'd be saying if I were him, and I think he's kind of said that. While at the same time telling Americans he's going to continue his despotic ways. He suggested that he wants to take steps to ensure that President Trump is unable to run as his opponent. And he said that he wants to launch a national security investigation into Elon Musk, who he sees as a political opponent, because not only is he being more vocally supportive of Republicans, but he's daring to express interest in having more free speech on Twitter. So, we're going to have more of the same, certainly from the Biden administration. And the question is, what are Republicans going to do? Are they going to stick with the House leadership and the Senate leadership, McConnell and McCarthy, that ran the campaigns that resulted in these big losses? And I know there are some who say that Trump was responsible and all of that. The politics are what they are. People are going to look at these results and say and blame whoever they want to for political convenience, because it's politically useful, I should say. But as I look at this, I see certainly on the House side, the House leadership, the House campaign operations that were pushing these, the themes for the election, is that they really failed to motivate the conservative base in a way that would have had a lot of folks come out to vote. And by that, they ignored the issue of government corruption. They didn't talk much about the invasion issue. Were they running on anti-corruption issues related to Biden? Of course not. And on abortion, they were frozen. They refused to embrace the moral take that the right to life should be celebrated and extended to innocent unborn human beings. Their response to the left's promotion of abortion was silence, largely. And a little bit after, just a little bit before the election, they said, well, the other side's too extreme. Well, that wasn't obviously enough to motivate pro-life voters to come out and vote for them in large numbers. So in my view, you had this failed leadership in the House and the Senate promoting and actually being antagonistic to some of these core conservative values, and it resulted in the results that we saw. Now, For instance, do you think Kevin McCarthy is going to embrace an accountability project in the House? Is he going to say we have to impeach Biden? We need to have a broad-based impeachment inquiry, as I've suggested, or that we need to issue subpoenas, or we need to hold accountable those members of the House who are abusing their offices to target innocent Americans like they were doing on the January 6th committee? I don't think he is. So as best I can tell, many conservatives, because I'm one of them, think there needs to be a change in leadership in the House and in the Senate that better reflects at least our conservative values. And this is not a political question. This is, do we want government officials in leadership positions in the House who are not going to do the right thing for government accountability and transparency and to address the threats to the republic? Would the President of the United States threatening the jail his political opponents the day after an election? Virtual silence from the Republican leadership has story after story implicates President Biden in political corruption, RICO, racketeering type operations being run out of his vice president's office. Virtual silence. So I don't know who's going to be Speaker. Is it going to be McCarthy? I don't know. But I do know that if you have views as to who should be Speaker, you should be calling your elected representatives. Now, it may be tough to call the ones who are just elected because they may not have office numbers yet, but they could be voting as soon as next week as to who their leadership's going to be. And I'm not quite sure when the House Speaker election would take place, where that selection would take place. But you should share your views with your members, your representatives in Congress. Same thing goes for McConnell's office. Do you think McConnell should be the majority leader and or minority leader, depending on how it turns out? You know, McConnell was supportive of a lot of key measures of Biden's spending operation on transportation, and I think he supported some anti-Second Amendment regulations that Biden promoted, if I recall correctly. So, you know, you have this approach that, and it's not because I oppose Republicans because they're Republican or I oppose Democrats because they're Democrats. As an activist and as the head of Judicial Watch, a conservative organization, I think leaders should be committed to the issues that we care about, which is ensuring our republic is protected, our Constitution is vindicated, and those who are corrupt are held accountable. And if there are leaders in Congress who, in the, you know, it's basically a congressional decision, you know, we're gonna say what we think. No one's saying don't elect them. They're elected. The question is, what positions of influence should they have? What positions of power should they have? And that's something everyone can have a view on. So some of you may be upset about the way the elections turned out. I was surprised. I wasn't upset. But what I do know is that no matter who would win in Congress and who is going to run Congress, who's going to be the Speaker or the majority leader, Judicial Watch still has a lot of work to do. You know, we have this election integrity work that is ongoing. We have litigation in Pennsylvania and Illinois to check the counting of ballots or stop the counting of ballots for up to 2 weeks, mailed ballots that arrive for up to 2 weeks after an election. Incredible. Colorado, we've got a case that's ongoing to clean up election rolls there. In New York as well. So all that has to continue, and there'll be more litigation to defend the rule of law and election integrity. And then, you know, we have this issue of the corruption of the Biden administration. I don't know what Congress is going to do. I do know from past experience, Congress has great difficulty for a variety of reasons that I could spend a lot of time talking about, but wouldn't really get us to the point, in getting information from the executive branch. Heck, Republicans who ran Congress couldn't get information from an administration run by a Republican, the Trump administration. You had Rod Rosenstein and all the Justice Department and FBI gang refusing to turn documents over. So how do you think it's going to go for Republicans? And so if they're presuming they're running the House, when they start conducting oversight of the Biden administration, it's going to be 2 years of document fights. It doesn't mean it's not worth having. It doesn't mean it doesn't need to be done. It doesn't mean there shouldn't be oversight. But it does mean that Judicial Watch is going to be even more important than ever, because we're better than Congress at getting documents out of administrations. We've demonstrated time and time again that the FOIA lawsuits we file often get records that Congress is unable to get, whether it be on Benghazi, the IRS, the abuse of Trump. I'm going to be talking about information related to Ukraine, COVID, Fauci, you name it. There isn't a topic that Judicial Watch hasn't been able to, through FOIA, extract documents on that members of Congress aren't looking at and saying, why can't we do that? And let's not pretend they're, quote, all of a sudden going to be able to do that with this new, with the way things are likely to be over the next 2 years. So our work is going to be more essential than ever. We will continue to provide leadership in terms of challenging and exposing and trying to stop, more importantly, government corruption. And one other piece of advice I'd give members of Congress, and I do look forward to working with new members of Congress of either political party, I'm happy to talk to anyone, as to what they should be doing. You know, in many ways, we've already proven there's been criminal conduct and corruption. And the question is, what is Congress going to do about it? Do they need to look at more documents? No, that's usually an excuse not to do something substantial. If I were them, I would be looking at the issues that have already been proved. The abuse of the FBI, the abuse of the Justice Department to spy on Trump, the lies about gain-of-function research. And they should be making budgetary decisions and impeachment decisions and other accountability decisions with respect to agencies and individual employees, meaning zeroing out, for instance, the salaries of certain officials who engaged in misconduct or who are engaging in misconduct, and using the power of the purse to do the work of accountability. It's not perfect accountability. You know, I know many of us would prefer some prosecutions here and there that we evidently are never really going to get from Durham at this point. But there are other things and tools that Congress can use to get some accountability, and I encourage them to use it, to use those tools. And it doesn't mean that Judicial Watch stops doing our work in the meantime, but our work also includes encouraging government officials to do their jobs, which isn't just to blindly spend our money, but to make sure that the money's spent well, and if there's misconduct in government, that they take steps to address it directly. So we do what we can in terms of the heavy lifting, but it's well past time for Congress to start doing their heavy lifting with respect to government corruption, oversight, and accountability. And as you know, we're well ahead of the game already on that. And so back to work. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.